Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning in for another episode. Today we're going to talk about one of my favorite forage species for bass. This is a small panfish that lives throughout the majority of the United States. As you get further north, generally they become a little bit more prevalent, but at the same time, they are scattered pretty much around the most of the country, and they provide a fantastic source of food for bass, whether that's largemouth, smallmouth, or even spotted bass in some instances. So we're going to talk about that today. Before I do get into that, though, I do want to remind you I do a bunch of lake breakdowns through fishthemoment.com, where I take a lot of different lakes scattered across the country. I break them down, provide a bunch of different waypoints based on the time of year and in multiple different types of patterns and techniques, so that if you get to the lake, it'll give you a really good place to start. Great way to help you break them down faster. So if you're going to a lake for a vacation, or maybe you're going there just to fish it for the first time, check out those lake breakdowns. I'll put the link in the video description for you. Also, if you want to support the channel in another manner and you're looking to purchase some tackle, please use my Tackle Warehouse affiliate link. I'll put that also in the video description. Every little bit I make from that goes right back into making content, so that hopefully we can all learn to catch a few extra bass. So let's talk about my favorite, probably my favorite forage species. I don't know why why I like these guys so much, but I think it's probably because they're such like ferocious little fish. But it is the yellow perch, guys. The yellow perch is a fantastic forage species for bass. One, they're longer, thinner species of fish, therefore they're easier for the bass to swallow. They're also a great source of protein. And generally speaking, they're not full of a bunch of different types of barbs and stuff, where the fish they can generally get them down their throats relatively easily. But depending where you're at in the country, there are places that just are overrun with these, and they are one of the primary forage species. As an example, if you go to a place like Lake Champlain has more yellow perch than I've ever seen in my life. Schools of thousands upon thousands that are just swimming. Sometimes they're up shallow if they're getting ready to spawn. Sometimes you see them out deep. But I mean, to the point where you could have acres of water that are just solid yellow perch. It's an amazing sight. But because there are so many, they are a primary forage species for both largemouth and smallmouth. And there are lakes across the country that just have tons and tons of yellow perch. You go down into the Tennessee River lakes, you'll catch yellow perch down there as well. So they are scattered pretty much around a good chunk of the country. So I've got a bunch of baits here that do a fantastic job at mimicking the yellow perch. Now, you could say that it's just about the color, but to me, it has a lot more to do with the body shape and the body style of your bait. Again, you're talking about fish that are a long, skinny fish, and therefore something like a jerkbait is a great way to go about it. This right here is just the Megabass Vision 110 plus one in their perch color. I believe it's actually to be 100%. Yeah, this is the perch. They've also got, I think it's like a GG perch, which has a little bit more of a chromish look to it. Both of these are fantastic. They do a really good job at mimicking the perch. And one thing to keep in mind too is the perch tend to school, but when they move very similar to shad balls. So if you disrupt them, it's a very hard turns left and right. That's where a jerkbait comes into play really, really well to mimic a perch. It's one of the reasons why if you do fish a fishery that has a bunch of yellow perch, this colored jerkbait can be an absolute hammer for you. I've got tons and tons of perch colored jerkbaits because of how good they do come into play. Now, if we're going to stick with a place like Lake Champlain, one bait that I really got onto a handful of years ago, and you've seen some extremely high finishes out of a lot of Elite Series tournaments, Major League Fishing tournaments, smaller AAA events that have happened over there, and that's this guy right here. So this is a Duo Realis spin bait. This is a 100 model, so it's the bigger size. This is their, I can tell you exactly, I think they call it the male perch. What is gold perch? But they have a couple of different perch colors. But this again is a great bait at mimicking the yellow perch because of the size and the profile. You know, this is not a small spy bait by any means, but it is definitely one that matches like the perfect size that most bass are looking to eat. The nice thing with this is it's got a little bit of shimmy to it while you're retrieving it, and you can get it down deeper. Plus, one thing that I like about the 100 size is you can throw it on bigger, beefier bait casting gear. You really can rifle these things out there and throw them. You can throw them like a half mile, that's for sure. So those are some great hard baits. One other crankbait that I really like to throw, and there's a bunch of different sizes of it. This is a Rapala, this is a Rattling Shad Rap, but their Shad Rap series is a great bait to mimic your perch. They've got fantastic perch colors as well, as you can see. And if you're looking for a bait that will get down and kind of deflect off some of the grass, some of the rocks that the perch are going to be hanging around in when they're up shallower, a Shad Rap is an absolute phenomenal bait to do that. And then you kind of move into some of your soft plastics. I mean, I think anytime you're trying to mimic a a bait fish of some form, you're going to be talking about boot tail swim baits. For me, there's not a whole ton of really good yellow perch imitating boot tail swim baits out there. And one nice thing about a swim bait is you can get it down significantly deeper. You got to remember, perch are known to go quite deep during some times of the year. In fact, you might catch some down in 40 foot of water, and you might catch some that same day that are up in 3 feet of water. They really do cover the entire water column, but it's hard to get baits down past 15 or 20 feet that are like your hard baits. So that's where a lot of your swim baits come into play. One of my favorites, this is just a Bass Tricks perch. It's a hollow belly swim bait. Absolutely phenomenal bait at mimicking the perch, especially if you happen to be on a lake that's got a little bit more color to it, where some of the perch are going to be a little bit lighter in color versus some places you go where they're really bright, really vibrant. They've got really bright yellow fins. I just happen to really like this perch color. I think it also does a good job at the same time of mimicking some of your other forage species. So it does a good job of just kind of matching a bunch of different hatches. But I've had tremendous, tremendous luck with this guy over the years. Another one that I really like, and this is a little bit smaller, but this is a Kitech Swing Impact Fat. This is a little 2.8, but it's their male perch color. So it's got a little bit of an orangish belly, a little lighter green back on it. In the water, it does a really good job at kind of glowing. It looks much more like a perch in the water than it does necessarily when I'm holding it. It also has some good gold, some good flake in it, gold, yellow, a little bit of iridescent type flake in it. That does a good job at mimicking the perch as well. And this bait, I mean, you can fish from a 2.8 all the way up to, I don't know, 6.8. Lastly, one of my other favorites is this guy right here. This is a Reaction Innovations Skinny Dipper in the Sungill color. This bait, again, does a great job at mimicking your perch. I've had really, really good days just throwing this around, fishing some grass flats where I might have it on a belly-weighted hook. Therefore, I can fish it weedless through some of those grass flats, but a lot of times the perch will get right up in the grass in the same areas where the bass are going to be, same areas where a lot of bluegill are going to be. And this is a really good bait to imitate those perch that are up shallower. So depending on where they're located, I'm going to be rotating through these baits. But generally speaking, you want something that's got a little bit, you know, a good green base to it, a little bit of orange somewhere in the bait. And the other key factor I feel like is having something that's got some of these black vertical bars, because that is one of the most distinct features of the yellow perch. But if you have a color somewhere within that hue, that range, and then you've got something that's got that kind of that same body profile of perch, you're definitely barking up the right tree from that standpoint. Give some of these a try. If you happen to live in the North Country where perch are everywhere, or you live somewhere in the middle part of the country, even down south where there are a bunch of yellow perch in your lakes, you might want to try these, because they do a very good job as well at standing out from the general forage, even in those lakes where there aren't that many perch. So if you've got a lake that is dominantly a shad-based forage lake, throwing something that's a little off colored isn't always a bad thing either. So even though there might not be a ton of perch, throwing one of these perch imitating baits can make your bait stand out pretty significantly from all of the other shad that are in that lake. So let me know in the comments section, what are some of your favorite yellow perch imitating baits, so that myself as well as the other viewers can learn from you. If you enjoyed today's video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Stay tuned, new video coming out tomorrow.